It's good actually to have things like shift up because it kind of makes us look at our environment. When we look at our environment, we tend to say what's going on up there, and then hopefully we say what's going on in here, and we shift and we adjust and we grow accordingly.
Mm,
Hopefully, hopefully that's
hopefully.
why we do the show, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's those ebbs and flows that allow us to grow. I mean, so many people are afraid of the downtimes, but I think in the downtimes really is an opportunity for us to reflect, to kind of ask ourselves a little bit more, direct questions for what it is that we truly want in our life. And I've been telling people lately, like, ask yourself, am I happy? Yes or no? And so oftentimes we go to the middle. Well, I'm sort of, no, if you're either happy or yes or no. And if you're not, what is the area of your life that you're not happy in, and what steps are you taking to fix it? And so many people are just sitting there in that case of, I don't know what to do. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know what to believe anymore. And so hopefully tonight our conversation with our guest is going to help solidify who we are and give them an opportunity to perhaps examine who they are.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've had some amazing guests as we're talking about I am finding your purpose, getting to know who you are. And one of the things I want to reiterate that we talked about from the first show when we did our live show, I think it's very important for us to remember this. We are in a dynamic existence. And so in this existence, we are water, we are the flow, we are the fluidity that comes through this world. And the minute we get stuck on one thing, so we get stuck on an ideology, we get stuck on this is my identity and only who I am. The second we do that, that's like being in the middle of the river and getting stuck on a rock in the rapids. And so what happens is the river keeps flowing and we're on that rock yelling at everybody else, telling them that wrong. Eventually they disappear and become part of that fluidity, which is life. So what I want you guys to really listen to closely today, because our special guest really, really has done a great job of being super self-aware, of identifying that here's something that's a label that I wear in this present moment. Here's another thing that I wear, and figuring out how to come back to that center, that truth I am. And I love the way she speaks. I love her intellect. I love her heart and mind alignment. It just always feels good. And I think you guys will feel the same thing. So without further ado, I want to invite my great friend, Tinisia Green, to the show. Hi, Tinisia.
Tinisia, what's up? Welcome
Hi.
to the Unfiltered experience.
Hi, how are you doing?
We're fantastic. We're ready to rock and roll with you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
I love it. I love it. So Tinisia, we'll start and just ask you the big question. A lot of times we'll ask somebody, what's the first I am statement that comes to mind? We've had I am playful. We've had, what did Mitzi Perdue say again? I am actively growing. What was hers?
Yeah. Yeah. Hers was fun.
Man.
Actively learning.
It was beautiful. And you know what? Guys, it's Friday night. I'm not always there, long week, but we'll get back to it. Now you have to go watch the Mitzi Perdue show because I couldn't remember what she said. We've had some beautiful I am statements, and we'd love to hear which one comes to mind for you if you've got one or two that you'd like to share.
Well, yes, Scott, thank you. I do. So I guess one way that I've come to see myself is that I am constantly growing and changing, but also over the years, I've learned to develop somewhat of a gratefulness or contentment for what I do have, the good things, and even sometimes the not so great things that I'm experiencing, at that moment. So gratitude and growth, I guess, would be what I am.
I am growing and I am grateful.
Grateful.
Mic drop. These are all beautiful right there. I am growing and I'm grateful. Those are solid right there. If we could all start with a baseline of gratitude and know that we're always flowing and growing, what would this world look like? Much better place.
So true. So true. I mean, about gratitude. I mean, gratitude, when you can find gratitude in the downtimes of your life, then that's the perspective to have, because when we think about it, when have we grown the most? When things were easy or when things were challenging? So in those moments of challenge, we can ask ourselves, hey, what am I supposed to be learning from this? Or we can ask ourselves, how can I run away from this? And hopefully it goes away. And so I love the fact that you talk about gratitude. Tell us about something in your life where you've had gratitude for something that might have been what's considered negative. And on the other side of it, you can see how you could be grateful for it.
Well, yes. So this is probably maybe a big part of what I'll talk about tonight is that in 2018, 2019, my mother started to exhibit signs and was eventually diagnosed in 2019 with Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, my God.
And it completely changed everything for me. And when I say everything, the way I related to her as well as myself. and my expectations of others. My mother was a caregiver for a sibling. So by default, I also became caregiver for her and him. So this really was a big change for me in two things: learning, one, to accept what's happening at the moment and not be so stuck in what happened in the past and what I experienced or my expectations of the past. And to even make this a little bit more dramatic, so around the time that she was diagnosed, I had already started. I decided, I don't know, I was maybe 52 or 53, and I was reading Mindful magazine. And there was an article about this lady. She was in her 50s, and she always wanted to be a counselor, therapist. And her husband told her, he said, you know, you have a choice. You can go back to school, and 2 years from now, however much the time length was, you'll be not a counselor, or 2 years from now, you will be a counselor. But either way, the time will pass. So in 2017, before all of the drama with the family illness and so forth started, I had been wanting to go back and obtain my doctoral degree, and so I did. So I started a doctoral program through a university. It was in Connecticut, doing a hybrid program that was part distance learning, part a little bit going up there. And then about, I don't know, 2 semesters into the program, get this diagnosis, this family, changing diagnosis. And it's just a small, number of us. So my family is pretty small. So a lot of responsibility landed in my lap, in addition to a full-time job and also a part-time job, because of course, I always like to be a little extra. So here all this was happening, and I had a choice at that point. Well, I could stop. And I thought, no, I'm not going to stop, because part of my personality, I think, has always been, to bulldog through things, whatever it takes to get things done. That's always just been part of my personality. So I said, well, okay, I'm going to continue. Okay. About 3 semesters into the program and 1 semester into the diagnosis, or maybe it was 2, I changed job locations, and I fall 3 weeks into the new location, and I break both bones in my wrists.
Oh my God. That makes it hard to do your schoolwork.
So hard to do that. Hard to do hard to do the part-time jobs. I learned how to use voice, dictation on my phone. And at the time, a full-time job was, I was a teacher, and I actually initially had to rely on students to help me type things into my computer. They were a huge blessing. In fact, when I fell at work, and the students had to help me out. So part-time job was, believe it or not, I was an acupuncturist, and I had a practice in a chiropractor's office. Was renting a space, and I would go to work there like Tuesday nights and Saturdays on the weekend. Then I was helping out mom. I was doing all this stuff. Like I said, I'm an extra. So other part-time side gig I was doing, and I've been doing forever, was so before career changes and everything, I was a tech writer and worked in the science field. So I was doing medical writing for this company. And so everything was relying on this right hand, right? So it was, I thought, okay, what is the universe trying to tell me? Well, maybe I do too much was one thing. So I was grateful for that lesson. But also, it was like, am I going to change my personality? My personality has always been, I don't know if it's a good thing to identify with it or not, but grit. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Good. That's integrity.
Very, very difficult to determine, So people say, oh, you're a Taurus, and that's part of being a Taurus. So yeah, whatever. But I am, that's just me. And so I said, okay, remembered that article in Mindful Magazine. And I thought, well, 3 or 4 years from now, these situations will still be here. The diagnosis is not a reversible illness. It's not going to change.
No.
So we'll find a way to make it work. And so with that, I can say that was I've been through many other challenges in life, but that one, or I guess you could say this one, because it's still ongoing, I'm really grateful for. It made me, to an even greater level, rely on other people.
Mm-hmm. I heard when you said strength there, one of my big definitions of strength, especially when I go to these, host these men's retreats, is could strength look different to your current version? And I invite them to say, could strength be vulnerability? Could strength be asking for help? And I heard you say that loud and clear, and I could see the expansive I am in you open up when you were saying that. So keep telling us more about that, because everybody here has the outside world. And how do you take your inside world, hold your principles, your standards, your truth in light of everything around us? Because that's exactly what it is. This flow, we're getting bounced off rocks every moment. How do you stay in the flow, even though those rocks are bruising you up and there's more rocks coming, but you still hold true to Tinisia?
Well, so I have to go back to this. Many years ago, I learned to meditate. And so meditation has been something that helps me a lot. It helps in the prayer to take a moment and step back and hit pause, and also give me some stability. But also, when you were talking at the beginning, I don't know why I just remembered this, and it happened. So some years ago, I lived in Austin, and that's where I met you, Scott. And was when I was going to acupuncture school. And I remember taking one day off, and I can't remember which one of the creeks it was, but they're off of Mopac. I went to some creek, and it was the middle of the day, and I just sat on this rock. And I remember this, I was watching this leaf like bounce along the creek. And I just sat there for, I don't know, just fascinated by this leaf just, floating on the surface of the water. And I thought, and it would hit some pebbles, and then sometimes it would kind of like get a little stuck there, but then the water kept moving, and then it would move off the pebble, and then it would go a little bit distance long. And, it was just, so when you were talking about the flow, and, that image came to my mind. And, we can look at sometimes things in nature, and it can help us to understand how we can be. And so I was thinking, I think that's part of it. Part of what I've been learning in these experiences, and I've had people tell me many times, you need to learn how to go with the flow.
Instead of disrupting the flow?
Yeah, instead of trying to fight it,
Right.
So much so, invite yourself to become the water. I think that's the transition. A lot of people say go with the flow, but they have the illusion they're going with the flow because they don't realize they've stepped onto a rock. If you're the water, you flow right over the rock. The rock isn't an obstacle anymore. Your fluidity allows you to move past the rock with or without your decision. You flow over it, period. And that's where I think a lot of us are getting stuck, is disidentifying with the water and becoming unfluid and like letting go our dynamic nature for a very static nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. we lose our connection to loving ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with that said, if we can keep adapting, and that's what we should be doing as humans, right? Anyway, right? Always adapting, always changing, always. If we can, like you say, become the water, learn to just flow with it. I think it takes a lot of the pain and, a lot of the anxiety out of situations. So that was one thing, just learning, okay, I'm not going to be stuck in this. I have to be the strong one. I have to do everything. And, sometimes I have to ask for help. I learned, sometimes, I have to I had to, for the company that I did medical writing for, I was like, hey, I can't pick up any, fortunately it's a contract type job. So I was like, hey, for a few months, I got a hand in the cast and I'm going through therapy. I can't pick up any projects. And they were like, okay. They were fine. And I was surprised. I was like, wow.
You're expecting a ration of shit, right? You're like, oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, so that's part of it. Sometimes like our expectations have us creating these scenarios that actually aren't even there, So, and that's part of not wanting to go with that flow and go with the situation as it's presenting itself.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about, Tinisia. It's the fact of, what I was just listening to recently on a podcast is it is what it is, right? As soon as we acknowledge where we are with the situation, okay, I've been diagnosed with cancer. I have a parent that's got Alzheimer's. I've got whatever situations in front of us. The moment that we decide, okay, it is what it is, now I get to move forward from it. So many people stay stuck, but I know that a lot of people stay stuck in life. We're talking about the flow of life and who we are. Talk to us about empathy and forgiveness in your life, because I know a lot of people stay stuck, whether it's forgiveness they need for themselves for something they did, a discretion that they didn't appreciate about themselves. Talk to us about that journey for you of empathy and forgiveness to be able to get into that flow and stay in that flow.
Wow. Okay, so this is I guess a little self-reveal. When I was 34, and like I said, the previous occupation, I was a tech writer. I was a chemist, tech writer, science writer. And I was going through training one time, and they had us do this little, I guess, team building exercise where we did this empathy survey. And this was on my 34th birthday. I scored the lowest score out of everyone in the room on empathy.
Whoa. How many people were in the room?
I don't know. It was a corporate America job. I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10 people, in this training course. I was so embarrassed. And of course, the instructor used me as a person as a teachable moment,
Sure.
They heard my score. So that was some decades ago. It was one of those things where I go, oh wow, okay, I need to change. And so that was maybe the beginning of me really learning what empathy was, and that journey of moving to it. But I always think back to that. I was like, wow, I scored the lowest score in the room.
I'm heartless.
So in defense of you there, Tinisia, just for a moment too, and I want all people to hear this, there's something called an emotional intelligence trait assessment. And so there's a certain empathy score that you'll just get at the core that's static your whole life, that does not change. So your analytics, your statistical, your communication, your empathy, those traits are going to be your traits. But understand that's part of your design. So even your interest in science, something that in theory is like it's right or wrong, and then we move forward, that strength comes from a lot of times when we think of empathy, like it's important for us to be, I wonder what it's like, in that person's shoes. I think in that space, I'm sure you evolve, but empathy is defined in the trait assessments. It's kind of like if I'm managing a group of people and I'm the CEO of the company. I want somebody with somewhat, or at least historically, they wanted somebody with a lower level of empathy, because I have a super high level of empathy. Here's what I'm going to do. Oh, take the days off. Oh, you guys are drinking beer on the job again. Just don't do that. I would literally so I'm a visionary creator. I would get destroyed, which I have. So you want somebody to say, these are the rules. These are the structure. Here's what we play within. Here's the game. And so from an empathy standpoint there, I could see you being really effective there. Now, the extended empathy, the empathy of, hey, Scott, if you're not feeling well, can we cancel the meeting and I won't hold any judgment against you? I'm sure we can all evolve into that space.
Exactly. Well, one part of me trying to grow from that information was that unfortunately I went to one extreme. It's,
Gotcha.
Trying to develop more empathy and compassion, and also having to really learn what authentic compassion is. So,
what is it? I want to know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I,
As opposed to inauthentic compassion.
Seriously. Oh yeah, I want to hear it.
right. So, not doing something because, it looks good to others.
Yeah.
So really doing it from a sincere and authentic place. And so that information was very pivotal for me. I can just think that was on my 34th birthday. That was the gift I got that birthday.
Some old guilt that we've all had guilt from different cultures, different belief systems. I feel like everyone you talk to, you're like, oh, that's part of your religious mindset too, or your culture. Like guilt is those things that is a gift. Like we feel guilty. Like, why am I so unempathetic? I don't know. I love it.
But that's what we got to do. We got to sit there and have those moments where we really reflect upon our life. And so many times we're always doing instead of actually being. And I think that's something important that we could share with the viewers and the listeners of this program today is how can we get people to be more aware of being in the moment? Because I'm imagining that every moment with your mom is such a gift. I mean, I'm 54. Yes. And I look at every single day like, I even at this young age, I still feel like I'm on borrowed time. Like, okay, I'm over 50, between now and 80 or something like that, chances are, statistically speaking. And so I'm like really immersing myself in the moments with my son, with my wife, whatever I'm possibly doing. Talk to us about that transition for you, perhaps, of going from always going to now being who you are and kind of having that epiphany about who truly Tinisia is.
Well, thank you, Christopher, for this opportunity. So with the diagnosis, initially a struggle for myself and for my other two siblings was learning to see mom as she is now and not as she had been.
Yeah.
When we were growing up. And my mom, and I'm not going to say was, she still is because it's still there. But she, a lot of the personality that I have comes, of course, because of the way she reared me. And my mom is a free spirit.
Nice.
She was, always is always, on the go. The way she raised us, the minute summer break hit, we were on the road. We were going somewhere, So, when we started to see that she was not going to be able to do that anymore, that was a really big struggle. Another big struggle was, so one thing that people who are caregivers of Alzheimer's, LOs, we call LOs, loved ones, is how do we deal with the person when they're saying things like, for instance, a person who has Alzheimer's that has lost their spouse might talk about their spouse as if they're still alive. And then, so do you have to remind them that should you remind them that the person has passed? Do you meet them where they are? So one day I went to see my mom and we were sitting outside. She's in memory care. And she looked at me and she said, someone said something really horrible to me today, Tinisia. They said my mom had died. Oh. And I looked at her, and this was at the beginning. This was near the early. And being the person who got the lowest score on empathy in the room, because you're right, Scott, that science part of my
right and wrong.
It's the majority of it.
Can I say something real quick? I just want to just say something that's interesting. Your right hand corresponds to your left side of your brain, and that's your analytical side. That would be your scientific side. Your right hand was broken. I'll leave that there when you process while you're explaining. I just want to put it out there because I'm listening to everything and watching it, and it's making so much sense how the universe works. You lacked empathy and said, like you said to the universe, I want to be more empathetic. It gives you a chance to become more empathetic. You're getting all the gifts and recognizing them in broken hand, in opportunity to love somebody from a different space. It's beautiful and it's not easy and it is the rocks, but you're doing it.
Well, I tell you, there are forces out there that know better than I. So
they know better than all of us. We just flow and grow.
Yeah.
you have to. So yeah, so when that happened, of course, I tried to, well, don't you remember, yada, yada, yada. And I mean, as soon as it came out my mouth, I knew it wasn't right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to tell the lie.
Sure.
Which was like, oh my gosh, now I'm telling lies, So I really learned that afternoon that you have to meet that person where they are, not where you think they should be. And so that was a really big part of, again, getting me to change my understanding of empathy and, learning, you have the medical team tell you, oh, you always have to meet them where they are. You have to meet the person where they are. But until you really have the situation, it's kind of like role playing.
Yep.
You know how you have those role playing exercises and you put your students through them or what have you. But until that person really has to deal with the situation, it doesn't sink in, and it's not internalized until they actually, it's kind of like, I would imagine flying a plane. No matter how many times you go through the simulations, not until you've really had to land a plane,
Amen.
Then you really understand what.
And you're right. Flying's not hard. Landing is. So you want to know how to do that.
It's kind of important.
And I don't know if you've ever flown. Anyone can fly. You just hold the thing. It's landing that's hard. Trust me.
That's what I've heard.
I took flight lessons, and when he's like, okay, now hand it over to me, I'm like, hell yeah, he's pressing buttons, flipping things, the wings going sideways. I'm like, I can fly. I just don't know how to land. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So,
I've never thought, but I've seen the movies about that's always the problem. They can't land the plane.
Yeah.
It's anywhere,
Or they land a big 747 and they've never done it before and they landed all perfect and everything. Yeah, you're
That's
just
all
like,
for movies.
Yeah, I don't think so. One of the things I want to ask you, Tinisia, is based on kind of your personality and everything and being such a driven person. Talk to us about doing your best. I know a lot of people out there right now are struggling. I talked to somebody just earlier today. They do mental health advocacy work. They've done all these different things, but they're just getting to a point where they're just struggling. They're saying, Chris, I'm doing the best I can. And I'm like, are you really? So talk to us about that for yourself. When we say we're doing the best we can, what are some identifiers that we can kind of key in on to really make sure that we're doing the best, not only for others, but really for ourselves, because that self-love component, as Scott talks about in Go Love Now, is so important. And oftentimes we want to give love to everybody else and we want to take care of everybody else. And then we give ourselves whatever morsels are left. Talk to us about doing our best and what we can do for ourselves.
That's a great question. One that I have had all my life. Being a type A personality. And, what I've learned over the years is that if it's causing me more suffering to do something, to give something, to be in that space, that maybe this is not right for me. This is not real. What I was saying about authentic compassion. Mm-hmm. Compassion means having compassion for yourself as well as others.
True.
And sometimes, unfortunately, your best may be 80%. That's all that you can give. You can't. I heard it so many times. You can't give from an empty well, and this is so true.
True.
So sometimes your best from someone else's standpoint may be 80%, but actually in reality from you, it may be your 110.
That is beautiful. So maybe 10 or 30% are the self-love, and the rest, like right in this present moment where I need some extra rest today because I've been a little off. That is required for me to be the best version of myself to everybody around me. Yeah. But we all know what we would have done in our early 20s. We would have fought through aggressively to a point that we're sicker the next day or upset. So I took naps. I'm taking a break. I'm not going to go to the gym. Why? Because I'm going to take care of myself and rest.
Smart man.
I don't know. I want to find a way to go. I want somebody to drive me there, put me in the machines, but I'm going to do it because I'm going to practice what we preach together here.
Exactly.
Well, you have to take that rest so that later on you can continue. If you don't, your body will make you stop.
Yeah. Actually, that brings up a very good point. Well, I think a lot of times we always have the assumption that 100% is in the moment. So I'm giving 100% now, but 100% is understanding who you are so that you can be sustainable and regulate. So my 100%, if we were to look at it over a cycle of a year, is going to look really solid if I have the recovery and the rest, but it's going to look very sporadic and polar if I'm 100% now and I crash, 100% then I crash. So that's a beautiful way to look at it, is how do you have 100% sustainably? And the answer to that might be 78.43%.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I love it. So go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, go. You go for it.
I was going to say there's one more thing I wanted to come back to, because you had some, beautiful comments about how do we role play, how do we get in the moment, and how do we really accept people where they're at in the journey. And so we'll use the example of your mom and my grandfather for this example, but I want people who are listening to think of this scenario with a boss, with a family member, whoever it is that you have some friction with, that you don't know how to meet them where they're at in the journey. Now, first and foremost, if we've elevated to a space where we feel like we're beyond, we have higher lessons, we're in a space that we're up leveled, it comes with responsibility to be the light for others. And that responsibility we might not want to take, but that's the requirement for us all to evolve. So I'm going to share with you a few of the things that I did with my grandfather when he was living with us with Alzheimer's. So to the point, he would say stuff. My mom was very much the way you would be at first. It was hard for her. She's like, Dad, Nana's dead. Dad, Nana's dead. Your wife is dead. And he's, so it was hard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, I'll just play along in the game with you, but I get that because we have different, thinking styles. So one day I decided, wait a minute, I'm going to proactively play the game with him. So I know he loves baseball, and the Red Sox only won the World Series that one year. So I'm like, oh, the Sox are on. It's the World Series final. So anytime he was feeling like shit, we would watch that like it was brand new. I'd give him a beer. He always liked to eat cottage cheese and pineapple. And I'd sit with him. I go, no way. $10 says, I feel like he's going to hit a home run. I just feel it. And he's like, oh my God, you know it. And we had this beautiful experience together like it was brand new. And so when you think about this, there's a superpower that understands exactly where we're moving, and they're giving us the crumbs to move forward. And that's our divine self. And it knows why we're going through this. Like I said, when you ask for empathy, it will give you an opportunity for empathy. It knows how this is playing out. So in this moment, be blessed that we're the superpower and enjoy that opportunity to create beautiful times for that individual. Because there's a superpower creating opportunities for us to grow right now. So, he said some stuff to me. He'd be like, hey, thanks for taking care of me. Like every once in a while I'll hit me, go, you didn't have to do this. And I said, and you don't have to teach me to throw a baseball, and you don't have to teach me about, and he goes, and I'm like, so eat your hamburger. Let's watch the Patriots or whatever. But there's something, and I literally want to say the word fun in the opportunity to enjoy those moments with him. But we have to get past, like you said, but you used to drive me around the country and but now it's your turn to let them live their dreams in the moment. You
must have got in my head and had my thoughts. Earlier this week, I was thinking the exact thing. Now it's my turn. That is exactly it.
Good.
And, the other thing in all of this in the last 4 years or 4 or 5 years is, am I having fun?
There you go.
Am I having fun? Can I find some joy in this moment? And if I'm too stuck in, stress and it's going to be there. And there's the thing about stress. I want to say this. A lot of people, you hear people say, oh, that's stressful, so I'm going to run away from it. Okay. Some stress is good. Okay.
Yes.
Stress helps make that metal stronger.
Yep.
Okay. So, no, not all stress should we try to, like live in this situation that's going to be harmful for us, but not all stress is bad for us. What what really matters is how we're taking the situation. And okay, can I find something to joke about? Like, this is a pretty bad situation. The person, you just get the MRI and it says, okay, they've lost 80% of their brain cells, okay, or something like that. I'm just giving an example.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's exactly what it was, but like, oh, okay, that's pretty bad. You get this bad news, but do I have to live in bad news?
Yes.
Can I find something lighthearted, something joyful? Is there something I can do this moment to make this moment? Because that's all I really have. That's all we have with that person,
Amen.
Christopher, as you say, we're not getting any younger. So
yeah,
we're not going to go back to 34. That's for sure. So
I've been talking to myself a lot about that. I'm like, I talk about expectations because I'm like, I'm going to get back to when I felt like 27. I'm like, the other day I actually stopped for a second. I'm like, Chris, you're 54. Like, give yourself a break. You've earned the miles that you've rode through life with. It's okay to still want to get back there, but also having that realistic objectivity to go, okay, don't try to sit there and constantly be that, because you're going to be frustrated.
There's a 90-year-old wishing they were 54.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be somebody ahead. Those who embrace the present moment are living, and we can do that. We just get lured in by the outside noise. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to kind of change gears for just a little bit, because we're talking about your mom and everything, and I know this will help a lot of people because I've got a lot of my friends that are dealing with this. Fortunately or unfortunately, I lost my mom 12 years ago, and I never knew my biological father, and my sister is somewhere else. So I really have kind of dealt with death in my family. Like, I think about my wife, and I think about a lot of my friends who are dealing with their parents getting older, their siblings getting older. I had one of my friends just tell me the other day, he goes, Chris, I don't know how to feel anymore. He goes, my brother died. Like, he goes, my brother's been here since I was a little kid. It was like the longest living person I know. And I get chills when I think about this. Talk to us about the process of dealing with your siblings through this process. And what advice would you give to other people watching the show right now, thinking about their parents getting older? What are some things that we want to be aware of as our parents are aging, and some things to be proactive about with our siblings to avoid any misunderstandings or broken expectations?
That's a good question. I think, so there are three of us. My mom has three children. The younger sibling, he and I take a pretty proactive role in caring for mom. So, and thank goodness we've been a support. I know every family is different and different family dynamics, but I'm very blessed to have him, I have to say. But I noticed that with this situation, our conversations have become deeper. We talk more than we ever had before. So I think that for families, a lot of times serious illnesses that affect families, like Parkinson's, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, these things really aren't just affecting one person.
Yeah.
They're not hypertension, where a person can take a pill and then, keep it under control and eat correct diet. The whole family is affected. And that's where communication and I think really trying to not tell someone else how they should feel also.
Yeah. And
just accepting and just saying, hey, I'm here as a support for you. That's been the biggest thing for me and my family, I think, is those family members that are like, hey, I'm just here to support. I'm not trying to make you feel or think a certain way. And that is the biggest thing that we can really just do anyway for others, because we can't tell someone else how to feel or what to think or what to do. People will do what they want to do.
So true. Thank you for sharing that, because I know a lot of people out there I've had friends who have had their parents get Alzheimer's or dementia, and the sibling rivalry and the fighting and everything else that goes on and takes place is so sad. As the parent is losing their capability to interact with their family, everybody's fighting over who's going to get what, and I see it so disgusting. So I'm glad that you shared that with us. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing in? You started to touch on it, Tunisia. Chris, you're right. A lot of times people say, like, what's next? And so they're thinking, what's mine? But another thing before that comes is a lot of people go to their patterns. So the family dynamic, if there's a golden child, if there's a middle child that always sought specific, attention, if there's the youngest child who caused more grief, and I'm just giving very stereotypical roles there, but when we see that, a lot of times everyone plays their role. The eldest will come to the table and be like, I've got this, I'll take care of it. The other one's like, does mom still love me? And then the middle one's like, hey, I'm in Vegas, but yeah, just tell mom, give her my love, and so you have that. What I would say too is realize that those roles exist, okay? And ask good questions, because
Exactly.
and I think the questions, and Chris, you're great at this, Denise, you're great at this. I think to be able to ask questions. So let's say I have a sister who's very, very like has to be there because she'll feel horrible if something happens. What is it that makes you want to be there so much? How can I support that? Like, be compassionate to them too. And you have the person who's always in charge. Can I take control of some of this because I feel it will help me? And so I think that communication can be huge, and it might be different because we go back to our patterns of, like, fighting in the sandbox, or who stole the shirt, or who had the box of cereal. But this is an opportunity for us to grow and not miss a moment to be in love or support our parents when we can, because when it's over, we're going to look back and have missed an opportunity.
Exactly. Well, one thing I want to say about support, and it can come in many different ways. So I found with my sibling, sometimes just a little small act. I'm going to go get this for mom, and taking whatever it is there that they can provide at the moment can also be something that, it doesn't always have to be huge. And so sometimes when dealing with this dynamic, realizing is taking those small gifts of service from our family members and being open to that.
Love that. Receiving.
Got to be able to receive. Tinisia, thank you so much for being here on the Unfiltered Experience. This has been a tremendous conversation. Your authenticity, your integrity, your openness, your vulnerability has been much, much appreciated. We're going to wish your mom all the best in her process and her journey with your family and everybody else. Any final words for the viewers and the listeners watching this program tonight?
Just stay positive, keep going, and remember to be grateful.
Remember to be grateful, and also last but not least, I cannot talk today. People can get a hold of you through LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Tinisia Green, TIN as in Nancy, ISIA GREEN. For those of you guys listening on the podcast, linkedin.com/IN/TINISIAGREEN. Tinisia Green. Ladies and gentlemen, here on the Unfiltered Experience, thank you so much for being here. We're going to place you backstage. Don't go anywhere, because Scott and I are going to finish out the show, and we still want to talk to you and say thank you once again. So appreciate you being here on the Unfiltered Experience.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You are welcome. Okay. Oops. There we go, Mr. Scott. Yay. Oh my God. These times, I swear to God, these conversations just go by so fast. Like, I can just keep going. We could go for 2 hours on this stuff, but we're intentionally keeping them to 45 minutes so everybody can do their workout and drive to work and listen to our beautiful voices. So what are some summations of this conversation tonight?
I can't get enough of the complexity yet simplicity of every discussion that we're having. And when I'm listening to Tinisia, I mean, that the things that she's going through, we're all kind of relating to and going, I have a moment like that. I have a moment like that. And it's almost like great comedy. Great comedy comes with relatability. And so does great growth opportunity. It's like, I relate to that. I see that. So I know there were a lot of good nuggets here. And the ones I really want to focus on are the two that she said, and add one more. I am grateful and I am growing. If in every moment we get off that rock and we keep growing and we come back to a baseline of gratitude, we're going to be great shape. And the third is, I am always communicating. If we bring those three things to the table, we're always going to continue to grow. We're always going to find the beauty in the moment. And maybe we could add a fourth, I am present. So, but that's it. And I love it. And everything that she had to say, and just how articulate and connected and willing to see when she's talking about it, when she's falling out of balance. I love the comment about sustainable, giving 100% is maybe really 80% to keep that sustainable. I mean, those are beautiful tidbits for all of us to take away, to make sure our cup's full and make sure we're doing the things we need to do to be present, embrace the journey, and realize this is a very dynamic world.
It is. And it's constantly evolving and it's constantly moving. I appreciate what you're saying here. And I totally agree. You took the words right out of my mouth. I think one other aspect that I love of what she shared is the fact of the communication. The communication is so important. The communication to ourselves, how we're speaking to ourselves, so oftentimes can really predicate whether or not we're going to be happy or we're going to be sad or we're going to be miserable or we're going to be happy. It's one of those things, how we talk to ourselves, but also that communication, like setting the expectations with our family members, setting our expectations with those who we're having challenges with, and having that open, honest communication. So oftentimes we keep it inside and we say, well, those people should know. They should know. It's like, no, nobody knows until you actually have that conversation and speak about it and get that other person's involvement in it. And I also loved how the fact that she was very open to growing, right? You know, and being in one of those flexible situations to sit there and say, wow, what is this opportunity presenting itself for me? And now how can I become more compassionate? And being open to that and say, what do you mean? Fuck your test and everything. No, she was like, oh, wow, I have some growing to do. I have some learning to do. So we encourage you guys out there, you guys that follow us and listen to the show, obviously have the mentality of recognizing that this is an ongoing process as being in the human form. And we just want to strongly suggest to you to be open to receiving those little gifts, those little sudden nuances of challenges, and asking yourself, what is it that I can learn from this? What is it that I can grow from this? And then by that stretch, who is it that I can help go through this particular experience and perhaps, you know, maybe prevent it for them? So I love what Tinisia said, and we just appreciate you guys here being with us all the time. You guys can always catch us at www.unfilteredexperience.com. theunfilteredexperience.com. Go there, check us out. Make sure you get on the Facebook page. Let us know what you want to see. We've been having a lot of fun with this particular season of the show, talking about I am statements and talking about who we are and our identity and everything else. We're excited to continue bringing you other seasons. So let us know what it is that you want to see. Let us know what you want to hear, and we'd be glad to entertain that with you guys. So www.theunfilteredexperience.com. And with that, we will be back here next Friday night, as always, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Scott, I love and appreciate you, brother. And I will see you